Franklin's men were now facing their fourth winter in the Arctic. As they retreated back to the ships that autumn of 1848, the first British Admiralty search party was making its way into the Arctic. That winter, it even sent a sledging party right to the mouth of Peel Sound, the very channel south that Franklin's ships had sailed down.
When the searchers came looking for him, they looked down Peel Sound and saw nothing but an impassable barrier of ice. Just assumed, I guess, that Peel Sound was always choked with ice. It never opened up, that Franklin never would have gone down there.
The search party moved on and reported Franklin must have gone another way. Just 300 miles to the south, Franklin's men, back in the shelter of their ships, must have believed their chances of rescue were fading. If they were going to get out, it would have to be on their own. Buried in the Washington archives, there was now an Inuit report of some of Franklin's men trying for a second time to walk to safety. Two elderly Inuit, called Takita and Oa, described the encounter to explorer Charles Hall. They said the year was 1850, and that the men were led by an officer. The Inuit said they gave the men some seal meat, which they took back to their tents. They also said the men only seemed able to shoot small birds. They needed food because they didn't know how to catch seals or hunt caribou.
Early next morning we set off. The leader tried to make us stop, but we were in a hurry and did not know the men were starving.
Stop! Stop! Stop!
Inuit simply packed up and left. But when you think about it, a group of 30 white men, all hungry, emaciated, starving, unable to hunt for themselves, unable to move quickly, and a small band of Inuit, maybe only 2 or 3 hunters. There's no way they could have kept that large group alive. And if they had tried, it probably would have resulted in the death of both groups.
The story of what happened to those men is told in a trail of remains discovered over the years along the south coast of King William Island. At first they managed to bury their dead in makeshift graves, but then, weakened by coldness and hunger, they simply died where they fell. The bodies scattered at intervals for 30 miles.
In the Arctic, you feel like the elements are not passive. You feel like you're involved in some malevolent force. When you experience extreme cold for the first time, it's like a glove closing around you. You feel like you don't want to fight, you want to give in, you want to close down your senses. After a time, it's almost as if the cold has seeped through to your heart. And I don't mean your physical heart, I mean your soul, your very being, because you feel like no longer fighting. And once you've given up that fight, and you just want to sleep, you just want to become part of that oblivion.
The men who died trying to reach help told the Inuit that one of their ships had been crushed in the ice. That same year, the Inuit described an incident that took place on a single ship trapped in the ice. And this was the most disturbing story of all, an account of one last group of survivors. An elderly woman reported that a man from her village came upon a ship with a camp on land nearby.
The Inuit went to the ship all alone. He said there were men there. He said they had black faces, black hands, black clothes on, were black all over. This Inuit was very alarmed because they would not let him get away. Then a captain came out of the cabin and put a stop to it.
Leave him!
Then the captain took this Inuit down with him into his cabin.
There is a tent.
He told him to look over to the land where there are men living in a big tent. He said neither the Inuit nor any of his people must ever go there.
Understand? You must not go there. You must go. 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 Do not come here.
The Inuit was never told why some men were living separately in a forbidden camp. But in 1994, bone fragments discovered on King William Island suggested one chilling possibility. When anthropologist Anne Keenlyside tested the bones for lead poisoning, she also examined them under a powerful electron microscope.
We saw very distinct cut marks. These were quite different from animal tooth marks. These looked like very definite cut marks, as if they were made by some kind of a knife or metal blade.
Keenlyside then began plotting the pattern of cut marks on a skeleton.
A lot of the cuts were located in the vicinity of the joints. Some of the bones that would have been covered by a lot of flesh or soft tissue. We also found cuts, interestingly, in the bones of the hands and feet. And the hands and feet are probably the most human aspects of the body apart from the face. And the fact that we were finding cuts in those locations suggested to me that perhaps these individuals were intentionally removing those more human aspects of the body. I think this evidence is strongly suggestive of cannibalism among these Franklin crew members. I don't see any other possible explanation that would account for those cut marks.
Keenlyside's tests corroborated the Inuit evidence, a century and a half old. The bones she tested were discovered in almost exactly the spot the Inuit described in the story of the black men. What became of these survivors is uncertain. Some years later, the Inuit reported finding an empty ship. Close by was some footprints, but nothing else. That appeared to be the end of the Franklin story. But for one last intriguing detail. In about 1851, an Inuit hunter found 4 white men half dead on the ice and sheltered them for the winter. When the spring came, they gave him an officer's sword as a gesture of thanks. It was made in 1835, the year James Fitzjames was made lieutenant.
Everyone believes we will make it through in a season, though I hope that we are forced to stay at least one winter in the ice.